Hello, and welcome to this session on the most common business mistakes and how to avoid them. Now, first up, it's brilliant that you are taking the time to watch this session. Too often when we're in the exercise and therapy and wellness space, we focus so much time on the clinical side, the professional side of how we might get somebody better, fitter, stronger, that actually we forget about the business side of it. And the business side of it is just so important. If, for example, we know that if you have a better relationship with your clients, you get better outcomes. But if they're frustrated with your business through mistakes that have been made, you're going to be starting out at a lower level, and it's going to be that much harder for you, even if you're absolutely fantastic at what you do. One of the things that we hear, and I hear regularly, is that the business side makes people scared. It makes them fearful. They bury their head in the sand. So rest assured, everything that you're about to hear is made simple, clear, easy to implement, and for the majority of it, it's free to implement as well, which is always something that people like to hear. So by way of context around it, as a bit of an introduction and as an agenda, so I'm Malcolm Sloan, so I run SIF CPD, SIF Health, and also SafetyNet.online with some partners as well. And all of this information is based on the thousands of therapy and exercise and wellness businesses that we work with, and that we have seen what works and what doesn't work. And where it stands out from other things in the market in this space is the fact that it is also combined with the genuine business theory. So my background is from working as a management consultant, dealing with businesses in multiple different industries at all different sizes and scales, and needing to understand the theory behind it and then the practical application of that. And I've always found it fascinating since I came into this industry that it seems to be someone will create a business or a clinic that will do well, and then they'll sell those secrets and telling everybody should do that. Yet if there was one way, I told you there was one way to strengthen a knee and everybody should do it regardless, without you understanding the theory, no one would tell me yes, no one would use it. They'd say, well, it depends on the context and the situation. When I understand the theory and then couple that with techniques that we know can work very well in certain situations, then that's when it's very powerful. That's the time when we get the right results for the right people. And it's very much the same in the business world. And I've seen that for so many, it's not that you've made a mistake, it's just that the information that's out there just hasn't been good enough and how it's been explained to you. But let's move on from that. Let's dive straight in to this. So the agenda today, we've given a bit of an introduction. We're going to talk about 5 macro mistakes that many, if not all businesses make in this sector. And then we'll talk about 5 specific mistakes as well, which are the really quick things that you can put in place. Bit of a summary, and then we'll tackle the next step side of it as well. So first up, it's definitely the most important thing to say is mistakes will happen and mistakes are good. So if you hear things in this presentation and you think, oh no, this must mean that I'm rubbish, it doesn't at all. All it means is that you are being proactive and you are learning. Too many people think they make no mistakes when actually they are just not aware of the mistakes that they are making. Likewise, too often people identify lessons, but they're lessons identified, they're not lessons learned. There's a huge difference there. Mistakes are those building blocks for improvement. Wherever humans are involved, there are going to be mistakes. But actually, if we start thinking them as opportunities for improvement, as cheesy as that sounds, then that becomes really powerful. And if ever you're reflecting on things, rather than using negative language like mistakes, try thinking what went well and even better if. Because if we're talking about even better if, then we're talking in the positive language, and it's amazing the impact that that can have. So, at a macro level, what do I mean by macro? So, commonly, whenever we talk to clients around this space, they always dive into the nitty-gritty detail of the things very much where they've been working in their business and it's a little bit blinkered. When actually some of the things that have the biggest impact and some of the mistakes that have been made are actually when you take that step back out and you spend time on the business, not in the business. One of the first things we see is no vision or goals. If you don't know where you're heading, how can you create a nice, clear path to get there? That's what leads to a lot of meandering. That's what leads to time being wasted and energy and money and effort on things that aren't relevant and aren't helping you meet those goals. Now, these goals, different people interpret them in different ways, but I always feel it's important to have a few really realistic short-term goals, realistically ambitious, a phrase we like using. But equally, make sure you've got that 1 or 2 moonshots, as they're often known, if anyone's ever read about OKRs and how Google manage things. Now, those moonshots are great because if you aim for the moon, if you miss it, you're still going to hit the stars. And it's amazing that that powerful thinking can really drive you forward. Now, that doesn't mean it's, I want 10 clinics, I want to have multiple locations for my business, I want to be massive. That moonshot can be, I want to work 5 hours a week, have the perfect family life, and still generate enough income at the level that I want it to be. And for everybody, that will be slightly different. Now, when you couple those goals with then the business values, and it's worth understanding the difference between your personal values and business values, they may align, they may be slightly different. Then what we're starting to get here is a decision-making framework. So there's times when we feel lost, we can't see the wood for the trees, which happens far too often. Then having the business values helps. So for example, one of SIF's business values is simplicity. Everything that SIF does has to make our customers, our clients' lives simpler, and equally it has to make our lives simpler. And if it makes either parties more complex, then we take a long, hard look at it, and then more often than not, we say no to doing that. So that starts to see that you start, when you're looking at things and making a decision, does it fit with my values? And those could be ethical, they could be moral, they could be financial, they could be geographic, it could be about timings, which is I will not answer a phone call after 8 p.m. My protected family time is my protected time. These are important values to have. And actually that level of specificity can be really beneficial too, because then you start to build up that picture. And then you need a plan in order to achieve the goals. Now, the problem here is the majority of people don't have a plan. And if you have a written down plan, you are 50%, over 50% more likely to achieve your goals. If you have written down goals, then they say that you're more than 50% likely to achieve them than someone that's not. There's a raft of different studies out there, but the thing to take away is that if you have defined goals, and you have clear plans, a written down plan, you are far more likely to succeed than if you don't. Of course, there are always outliers, but that's the headline to take away. And yet in this space, the majority of people don't. And again, that's because, and I've heard it multiple times, people start talking about business plans and start talking about 10, 20 pages, tons of detail, and it's just not needed. There are proven things out there, and indeed have a look on CIF CPD, because we've got a whole section around it, a one-page plan, 10 steps to success. You can achieve this all on one page, and it's been proven thousands of times. The whole rule book for business plans has been ripped up, and instead, rather than it being something prescriptive that's out of date the moment you write it, and it ends up being some kind of doorstop and you resent it when you write it, you feel happy to have finished. Instead, it becomes this brilliant tool that can sit in the back of your notebook, where you can reference it on a weekly or a monthly basis, and it drives you forward. Because then when you're needing to make decisions, you can go, right, does that fit in with my plan? How does that fit in? Does it make it quicker? Does it make it slower? Now, does that fit in with my values? And does that help or hinder us in achieving our goals? Suddenly, those times of, do I need to spend X amount of money on this new piece of equipment or machine, start to fit in. Do I need to get locked into this very expensive website, or actually, do I not? Because actually I've got a clear plan and I really understand what is appropriate and what is not. And how we get that through the plan, as part of that plan, is the value proposition. So too often people have a confused value proposition, and that can be things they say, I can treat anybody. I can train anybody that wants to get fit, anybody that wants to get rehabbed. Now, if you market to everyone, you market to no one. And again, thoroughly recommend going and seeing the full detailed session all around value proposition on CIF CPD. Likewise, that links into your customers, your clients, your patients. And people have that too generic customer profile. So the value proposition is a list of services, and their customers is anybody that wants to get fitter, anybody that's injured. That's too vague. That is a mistake. And nowadays, when you have 7 seconds for people to process the information and see and make a decision as to whether it's relevant to them and whether they want to see you, it's just going to wash over them, you know. And there's again, great detailed session around it. Likewise, we can do one-on-one sessions if it's helpful, provide feedback. There's a template, it makes it nice and simple. It's a step-by-step guide, you know. But the headline side of things is, you know, imagine a Volvo, and anybody can drive a Volvo, but is it right for everyone? And if Volvo tried to market the Volvo to absolutely anybody that drives, how well do you think that would go? So that's all the stuff at the macro side of it. Now let's see at the more specific end, and that real world translation as to what that means in terms of some of the mistakes that are there. And one thing that's brilliant and incredibly effective is the power of storytelling and use cases. It brings it home, it makes it real, because it creates these scenarios that make people relate to them and make people think. So a classic is, nowadays, people are really busy. During the day, they're exceptionally busy for the majority of people, whether that's working, childcare, combination of both, trying to clean the house and whatever else, look after elderly relatives, etc., etc. Or they've just got so many interests. So often it's the case that it's about 8 o'clock at night that people then sit down on the sofa. Oh, so Gemma, 8 o'clock at night, she's home, she's finally found time, she's sat down on the sofa, she needs to get some help. Now you can insert this use case as appropriate, whether she's injured and in pain and wants some help, whether it's that actually she's hit the point where she's not achieving her goals in her training, she wants to get quicker, she wants to hit that time, she's got a marathon coming up and she's not quite sure about it, she's feeling overwhelmed about everything and not quite sure how to juggle things and needs some clarity in her life to reduce stress and anxiety. The principles are all the same, which is she is looking for help. Now, at 8 o'clock at night, where does she look to get that help when she's finally got this clear time? So the chances are it's the internet. And if she goes on the internet and sees a multiple different sets of people in the local area, she's probably going to flick through, it's proven, and won't spend a huge amount of time on each one. So what that means is that the information that she sees needs to be relevant and specific and show the value to her as to what she's going to get. If we start talking in terms of value, then that is far more powerful than just a list of services. How does she contact them? If you're going through a number of websites and you want help, is it hard to find how to contact someone? Is it nice and clear? Is there a book now button that's nice and visible with a nicely explained service? That sounds great. Oh, and I can book in tomorrow. Absolutely brilliant. That's done. Is she more likely to choose that than somebody that hasn't got anything like that? If there's a telephone number, does it give an indication as to what times are appropriate to call? You might be happy accepting calls at 8 o'clock at night, but if that's not listed somewhere or explained somewhere, then Gemma's not going to call that probably because she'll feel like it's too late. And then if you don't have anything in terms of online booking, etc., well, then you might have missed a client. Likewise, it might be that Gemma phones up. It may have been she's phoned up during the day. Now, does she hit your voicemail? Or does she hit a hello, welcome, to the voicemail of 0752, etc., etc. And she doesn't even know whether she's phoned someone. It certainly doesn't sound very professional, and she doesn't even bother to leave a message. These are the kind of little mistakes in that customer journey that can make a big difference. Just that simple thing of have a voicemail greeting. You don't have to have online booking. You don't have to have a call answering service. You can survive without them. They're brilliant services to have, and we would recommend people have them, but you don't have to have them because actually you can be clever. If you've got a very clear voicemail greeting that gives them the information that they need and tells them how to get the information which they want right now, which is why they're phoning you, then it works. And often that is, if you're calling to look for availability, go to this website, you can book right in there and look forward to chatting. Give them an indication as to when you'll give them a call back so they're not sitting around and nervous. That may mean that they're happy and able to wait for that rather than going off and finding somebody else because they don't know if they're going to get a call back. Because normally when you call someone at that time and they're busy, you don't hear back until the evening. Auto responses, whether it's on Facebook Messenger, whether it's on email, when people send you those messages, when are you available? You get that to and fro, it just wastes so much time. Have a nice auto response. If you're asking about availability, if you're interested, go here, you can see my availability, you can book in. You've saved yourself time and you've made that easy for your client as well. These are simple little mistakes that can be done in 2 minutes. And that all links into that customer journey. We were talking about it at the start about building up that client relationship, the therapeutic alliance, as it's sometimes known in certain circles. Make them really like you before they've even met or spoken to you, if that's the case. Give them a delightful, easy process, that customer journey. And always follow up with it. Even when you finish seeing them with the treatments or the sessions or the appointments that you do, then that person is still a valuable form of leads. That person at some point in time will probably come back. They might not, but if you are front of mind and you're providing value to them, then they are more likely to refer you on and recommend. And we all know that that is the most cost-effective way of getting new clients, and also the easiest, because people buy when they know, like, and trust. Now, we talked a bit about clear instructions already, and we could go into lots of detail about lots of those nitty-gritty specific things. You know, we've just picked out 4 of them that we've talked about now, and there's going to be one final one. Now, as you go through, you can start to see that yourself. You can put yourself in the client's shoes. And actually, again, we've got a follow-up, more detailed session around delighting customers, which is well worth a look, because it will really bring it home, and it will highlight some of those other areas that are there. Likewise, if you just feel lost with it all, then we can happily do a one-to-one session, understand your business, understand the context, and take all of that knowledge of what we've seen work elsewhere and bring that to bear and to help you with it. But on the flip side of one of the things we see is when people try too hard to be too happy, to be too available, to be too willing to help. And what that means is they end up not thinking about themselves. They end up being too nice to the clients. And then one of those particular things is that we see a mistake people make is confusing free time with available time. Now, your mental well-being, your protected time, whether that's for family, for yourself, for exercise, for CPD, for rest, for sleep, whatever it may be, then as all the studies have shown, and us working in the health arena no more than anyone, that it's really important. So we have to practice what we preach there a little bit as well. And people do not expect you to be available 24 hours a day. It may be that means you miss the odd client, the odd query. But you know what? If you've got some of the other things that we talked about fixed, so we're not making some of those obvious mistakes, that number will be very low. And those people that can't be bothered to wait around or get upset that why aren't you answering your phone at 10 o'clock at night, they are not people that you want as clients anyway, because they will make your life a misery. So there's always that small proportion of people we are very happy to say, thank you very much, you're not right for me, and I'm okay if you go elsewhere. So in terms of bringing this to a close, because we always like to do things that are fairly short, sharp, and to the point. We know your time is valuable, but take that step back out of your business. Think about some of that big picture side of things. Do you have a vision and goals? Do you have clear value propositions? Do they link to your customers? If you understand that, then you understand the channels which those customers, where they are and how you access them. And the more detail, the better. If you're not aware of any of that, please do go and see those sessions. They're only £5, and it will be the best £5 you've ever spent. I can guarantee that. Then we've got the specific side of things as well. And again, some of them are really niggly, and just put some of them in place. Don't feel overwhelmed by it. Sometimes you can just do one a week. Just work your way through, and then you know you've got that continual improvement. You're making things better as you go along every time. And at any stage, if you want some trusted feedback, we can help you with that. Likewise, there are options on the sites. You learn from peers as well. We've got some group coaching sessions too, some brilliant courses. We've talked a lot about the business skills, but certainly some of the communication and the fundamentals of that professional alliance. There's some in-depth learning on there as well. But follow @SIFCPD and @SIF Health on all your social media channels. There's a raft of helpful hints and tips that are out there. please do comment below. We'd love to hear how you found this session and what you are going to put into practice. So thank you for your time and good luck.